Hello, good morning, and welcome to another important time where we talk about business. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Ukem. In Business 360 today, we'll look at some of the biggest features in the world of business. We'll talk about the breaking stories, the commodity markets, and the different markets. And most importantly, we'll look at life expectancy across the world, as it seems to be at a major. Asia, merging with the Americans and European continents. Well, let's begin with inflation rate in the UK. The inflation rate in the UK dropped to 4.6% in October, falling short of market expectations of 4.8%. It is the lowest rate since October 2021, due in part to the recent reduction in energy prices following Ofgem's decision to lower the cap on household bills. The core inflation rate has also eased to 5.7%, the lowest since March 2022. Still on the foreign scene, Chinese President Xi begins first U.S. trip in 6 years amid tight security. Xi Jinping arrived at San Francisco ahead of a high-stakes meeting with his American counterpart Joe Biden on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. In Africa, since the July coup, its subsequent suspension from regional financial markets, Niger has failed to make payments totaling 187.136 billion CFA francs, an equivalent of $304 million. It's the money in interest and capital, according to data from the West African Regional Debt Management Agency. Niger has defaulted on an additional interest payments of $2.464 billion, rather 2.464 billion francs, an equivalent of $4 million on its debt. Following a military coup in July, Niger has been suspended from the regional financial markets. Quite concerning there. The 2023 African Investment Forum AIF Market Days in Marrakech, Morocco, recently concluded with resounding success, as the president of the African Development Bank Group announced that the boardrooms during the three-day event secured an impressive $34.82 billion in investment interest, surpassing the $31 billion achieved in the previous year. The event themed Unlocking Africa's Value Chains brought together heads of states, decision makers, multinationals, and investors. Dr. Desea highlighted the forum's role in continental deal making and positioning Africa in global markets. Let's find out further details.
Project. So excited that there is confidence in Africa. And what I like to say is that at the Africa Investment Forum, we've got an incredible platform of financial institutions. The African Development Bank and all of our partners that are on this platform, there is not a single project that is bigger than all of us. There's nothing that we are scared of about developing, about de-risking.
In Nigeria, the Nigerian government has revealed that Nigerians will be required to spend between 300,000 naira and 600,000 naira for the conversion of their petrol vehicles to compressed natural gas (CNG). The federal government is in the process of setting up 10,000 CNG vehicle conversion workshops soon. The initiative is projected to draw over $2 billion in investment into the Nigerian economy and generate more than 250,000 employments. Still in the country, Nigeria. According to the African Development Bank, plans are on to distribute $618 million to carry out Nigeria's investments in digital and creative industry initiative. Nigeria's IDs program, the IDICE program. This was revealed by Lamin Baro, the African Development Bank's National Director General for Nigeria. Despite initial delays due to political transition, advanced talks signal the imminent implementation of the project in Nigeria. Meanwhile, former presidential aspirant Professor Kingsley Magolu has predicted that the African Continental Free Trade Area would lift 30 million Africans, including Nigerians, out of poverty by 2035. Magalu, who is the chairman of the Board of Directors and Advisory Board at the African Private Sector Summit, disclosed this while speaking at a joint private sector session during the 2023 Afreximbank Intra-African Trade Fair in Cairo, Egypt on Tuesday. The ex-deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, noted that when fully implemented, the African Continental Free Trade Area would boost intra-African trade by 52%, lift 30 million people out of poverty, and increase the continent's GDP by $450 billion by 2035. Meanwhile, the former Emir of Kano, Mohammed Sanusi, has revealed how the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, weakened the naira. Sanusi stated that the central bank's lending to the federal government under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari through ways and means triggered inflationary pressure in Nigeria, resulting in the depreciation of the naira's value. Speaking at MTN Capital Markets Day, Sanusi pointed out that the CBN had engaged in aggressive monetary tightening using various liquidity control instruments, including open market operations, open buyback OBB, and high T-bills rates. He explained that these measures indicated the Apex Bank's commitment to its core mandate of maintaining financial system stability and controlling inflation in the country. Also, the Nigerian Customs Service Semi-Area Command said it facilitated 8 billion naira worth of export cargoes from September till dates. The Customs Area Controller in charge of the command, Timi Bomodi, said this while addressing journalists at the command in Seme, Lagos. He also said that within the period under review, the command facilitated the exports of 41,867.88 metric tons, involving 1,048 trucks. We'll go on a short break. When we return, Business 360 continues, looking at global economic standings around the world. Don't go anywhere.
This is Thistle Gun Range in Utah. This is the first time many of the people here will have fired a gun. They're teachers. I used to be a teacher too.
I was a teacher for 5 years, and I remember preparing and thinking a lot about what I would do if an active shooter came into my classroom. I have mixed feelings about this. I don't love the idea of guns in schools, but at the same point, I didn't love the idea of not having any protection against an active shooter either. I can understand why these teachers want to learn more. So let's find out what they're doing.
I'm on my way to the shooting range to see the final part of the 20-hour course. I had an opportunity to catch up with one teacher, Jeanette.
So tell me why you decided to take this course.
Well, you hear about school shootings all the time in the news, so I figured it's better to be prepared. I mean, you hope that's never going to happen, but you never know.
Before becoming a journalist, I taught in New York, where carrying a gun in the classroom would have been illegal.
Welcome back. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Okem. Lots of school shooting in the US, and teachers seem to brave up one way or the other, but quite concerning in that direction. Now let's talk about global and the world. It is a common belief fostered by economists such as Thomas Piketty that we live in an age of great inequality. This is partly true in economic terms in some countries. But in more general global terms, the reality presents the opposite of this belief. Excluding the tiny minority of billionaires and dictators, our age is characterized by massively increasing inequality, on the other hand, increasing equality. Global data shows that an extraordinary reduction in inequality has taken place in both life expectancy and incomes around the world since 1950. The chart we're about to see shows the gap in life expectancy between the developed countries of Europe and the USA and the developing countries of Asia and Africa. This gap has narrowed since the end of the Second World War at an unprecedented rate. In 1950, life expectancy in China was a lowly 45 years. Today, life expectancy in China has overtaken that in the United States of America, and it's over 75 years. Few forms of progress are more beneficial than extended life. Let's look at the charts indicating life expectancy in the last 70 years. The charts. According to the charts, we see by different standings, Africa with a brown line color, Europe with the blue dotted lines, and China with the red, as well as India with sort of green, and United States blue. It indicates from 1951, where life expectancy was around the world, mostly for these other continents, talking about Africa, China, and India, was within 40 years and above, below 50 years, but it began to move higher, and currently we could see at the heights of 2021, life expectancy have gotten to just slightly below 80 years, especially for the United States of America, Europe, and in China. In China, getting to that point amid increasing civilization and improvement in the economic standings of the people. But for Africa and India and Africa, India with a green line, life expectancy is slightly below 70, and Africa are slightly above 60 years. And it goes further to show the tandem. When there's proper development in the economy and growth, it also adds up to the life expectancy of the people. No wonder life expectancy in China is above 75 years, getting in tandem with the United States and Europe amid improved economy in China. Let's talk about the US economy. The annual inflation rate in the US slowed to 3.2% in October 2023 from 3.7% in both September and August, and below market forecast of 3.3%. Energy costs dropped 4.5% against a negative 0.5% in September, with gasoline declining 5.3%, utility pipe gas service falling 15.8%, and fuel oil sinking 21.4%. Additionally, prices increased at a softer pace for food, shelter, and new vehicles, and continued to decline for used cars and trucks in the US. On the other hand, prices rose faster for apparels, medical care commodities, and transportation services. Meanwhile, the core consumer price index unexpectedly rose 4% on the year and 0.2% on the month, below forecast of 4.1% and 0.3% respectively in the United States. And we move to the charts indicating United States inflation rates. The charts this morning. While anticipating the direction of the charts in the United States, we'll also get an inclination regarding Japanese economy, as the Japanese economy shrank 0.5% quarter on quarter. But let's move to the chart and see what the standings are. Well, by January 2023, inflation in the United States had gone up to 6.4%, though slowing down from 7.1%, 6.5% previously in 2022, but dropping to 4.9% in April 2023 and to 3% before immediate rise to 3.2% by July 2023, but stayed at 3.7% and slowed down there before dropping back to 3.2% in October, indicating the state of the economy, indicating one factor, that the prices for commodities are slowing down in the United States, and thereby indicating a stronger dollar. Now to Japan. The Japanese economy shrank 0.5% quarter on quarter in the third quarter of 2023, worse than market forecast of a 0.1% decline, and after a 1.1% growth in the second quarter according to flash estimates. This was the first GDP contraction since the fourth quarter of 2022 amid elevated cost pressure and mounting global headwinds. Private consumptions, which account for more than half of the economy, unexpectedly was sluggish, missing estimates of a 0.2% rise and coming after a 0.9% fall in the second quarter. Net trade was also a drag on the GDP in line with forecasts as exports in the second quarter rose less than imports. Meanwhile, government spendings picked up 0.3% after showing no growth previously. In Africa, Angola. The annual inflation rate in Angola accelerated for the 7th straight month to reach a one-year high of 16.58% in October 2023, up from September's reading of 15.01%. Inflation has been on the rise in recent months, largely because of a continuous devaluation of the kwacha, influenced in part by reduced central bank intervention and the lasting effects of the removal of fuel subsidies. Monthly consumer prices advanced by 2.2% in October, the most one over 2 years, after a 2.1% increase in the prior month, mainly due to sharp rises in prices of health at a positive 2.66%, transportation 2.54%, food and non-alcoholic beverages 2.42%, and clothing as well as footwear 2.31% in Angola. And quickly, let's look at the charts in Angola indicating inflation rates in the country. Inflation in the country, Angola, according to Estatística Angola, the Institute of National de Statistica, gave the direction. The statistics stood at 15.24% inflation standing last year, but dropped to 12.55% in January this year, and April it stood at 10.59%, a slowdown, and further began to rise 10.62%, 11.25%, 12.12% by July, and a high of 16.58%, indicating the struggle in Angola, high cost of living and high cost of commodity. In South Africa, South Africa's unemployment rate fell in straight margins, quite concerning for them. Quite good story, not concerning, fell to 31.9% in the third quarter of 2023, the lowest in a year from 32.6% in the prior period. The number of unemployed persons decreased by 72,000 to 7.8 million. The employed rose by 399,000 to 16.7 million, and the labor force went up by 326,000 to 24.6 million. Additionally, the number of people who were not economically active for reasons other than discouragement fell by 160,000 to 13.1 million, while discouraged work seekers dropped by 26,000 to 3.2 million. The expanded definition of unemployment, which includes those discouraged from seeking work, was 41.2%, down from 42.1% in the second quarter. Well, good time to look at the markets then, beginning with the agricultural commodities, as the price of sugar hovers close to 12-year high. Raw sugar futures were at 27.6 cents per pound, remaining close to a 12-year high of 28 cents touched on November 6th, amid supply concerns from key producers. Drought triggered by El Nino, the El Nino weather in India. The world's second largest sugar producer and exporter continued to halt cane yields in key regions of Maharashtra and Karnataka. Consequently, the Indian government announced it would extend ongoing export caps indefinitely, bringing the possibility of a further drop in quotas that reached 6 million tons in the previous marketing year. In the meantime, bottlenecks in Brazilian ports capped the amount of sugar that the world's top producer and exporter could sell to foreign markets. Fuel costs rebounded from recent lows and incentivized cane crushers to use the raw material for more profitable ethanol instead of raw sugar production, a limiting supply of the sweetener. Quickly, let's move to the market and see what the prices are, beginning with the agricultural market and afterwards the energy market and the metals, the agricultural commodities. According to the market this morning, the agricultural commodities price of soybeans upward by 10.75 points after a slowdown yesterday, a 0.78% appreciation, $1,396 per bushel for soybeans. Wheat price also upward by 6 points, lumber dropping 12.22 points, palm oil gaining 81.3,987 Malaysian ringgit per ton. And now to further commodities, the metals and the energy market. The energy market this morning have shown a downward pedestal this morning, but a slight momentum not so heavy, a negative 0.54% decline, $77 per barrel. Brent, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, is at $82 per barrel, dropping 0.263 points this morning. Natural gas, gasoline, heating oil, coal a little here, a little there. Now the metals. The metal commodities have shown some positivity. Gold price going up by 9.51 points, a 0.48% appreciation, $1,972 per ounce is the price of gold. Silver price also upward, but no significant difference so much in the market, just 1.16% appreciation, while it's a big gain there. And copper price also upward this morning. Steel price gaining 3,920 Chinese yuan per ton. Iron ore, no significant difference in the market, similar to lithium. And that's a conversation from the commodities. Now to the foreign exchange market. That's a big question that many analysts are asking. What is keeping the yen and the Canadian dollar in the doldrums? The US dollar is proving to be very strong against both the Japanese yen and the Canadian dollar. However, the foundations of a dollar's strength have different explanations according to each of the competing currencies. Here's a story of two very distinct currency scenarios. Let's find out more from Ira Einstein regarding this.
The Canadian dollar is a little different. The Canadian dollar problems stem from a fact. The US dollar has proven resilient and very strong against both the Japanese yen and the Canadian dollar. In the case of the Japanese yen, it's simple. The Japanese government wants inflation. In order to get it, they drop the value of the yen and they keep it dropped until they can get inflation to the point where they want it, which is probably 2.5%. The Canadian dollar is a little different. The Canadian dollar problems stem from a fact of, number one, they look over the border and they see a powerhouse economy. They're not comparing to it in the ways that they should. Number two, price advantage. By keeping their currency a little bit lower, they get good export business. So the combination there, the other combination of how their economy is smaller in size, and they feel the selling pressures there as well. Will this be overcome in 2024 is the big question, but at this point in time, Japan wants has proven resilient and very strong against both the Japanese yen and the Canadian dollar. In the case of the Japanese yen, it's simple. The Japanese government wants inflation. In order to get it, they drop the value of the yen and they keep it dropped until they can get inflation to the point where they want it, which is probably 2.5%. The Canadian dollar is a little different. The Canadian dollar problems stem from a fact of, number one, they look over the border and they see a powerhouse.
And that's the outlook, but let's move to the market itself and see what the euro against the USD price level would be, as well as further performances regarding the naira. The euro against the US dollar, the majors. The euro against the US dollar, current price is 1.085 point mark after recent rise to 1.089 point mark for the euro, and the momentum building from yesterday, but it's dropping slightly this morning at a negative